about some of the foods to choose and foods to lose. So let's start with sugar. You first want to eliminate sugar. Sugar is not your friend. I can't really think of anything good that it does. It spikes your blood sugar way too fast. There are other carbohydrates that are healthy. Sugar's not one of them. Gluten is another one. Especially for mental clarity, for things like autism, schizophrenia, ADD, and even for just general health. Getting rid of gluten out of your diet, and even if you do eat it, only eating it in small amounts once in a while, are going to make a radical difference in how you think and how you feel. Dairy is another one. We're going to ask you to eliminate it for a few weeks. Now, a lot of people say, oh, but dairy doesn't affect me. Just eliminate it for a few weeks, okay? The casein in dairy is actually an excitotoxin in the brain. So generally, when we have people go off of dairy, they typically feel better. So if you're not one of those people, that's okay. You'll add it back in later. Just add it back in smaller amounts. Goat's milk is different than cow's milk, so some people can get away with small amounts of goat's milk, just to point that out. Just make sure it's organic. The next one is soy. So we're going to ask you to eliminate soy. 80 to 90% of the soybeans in the US are genetically modified. So I don't really want you consuming soy, especially in the form of soy milk. For vegetarians and vegans, some organic tofu actually has different properties. So that is okay to have some organic tofu, but I would make sure it's organic, and fermented is better than just regular soy. Corn is another one. I know a lot of people are like, corn, but that's the all-American food. I know. Unfortunately, we've been raised on corn. That doesn't mean it's a good thing. Corn is a grain. It's not a vegetable, and it has one of the worst fatty acid profiles of any grain that there is. So I just want you to think with me for a second. Why do farmers feed cows soy and corn? Yeah, it's to create that lovely marbling on their backside. That same marbling that will end up on your backside. It also creates inflammation. It's very high in omega-6 fatty acids. It has 23 different mycotoxins in it, and it can cause the same type of lesions in your GI tract and in your gut that gluten causes. So we want you to eliminate corn for a while. So in foods to choose, I want you to focus on things like fresh vegetables, especially non-starchy vegetables. So lots of greens, things like broccoli, kale, chard, spinach, Brussels sprouts, lots of greens. Eat from the rainbow. So red bell peppers, yellow bell peppers, lots of things like that. A little bit of fruit. I don't want you eating too much fruit in this phase. Okay, so 1 piece of fruit a day if you're not diabetic, or about a half a cup of berries. Eliminate fruit as much as possible, as much as you can. Because a lot of times what happens is I'll tell people, go ahead and, cut out sugar, and they'll turn to 3 or 4 pieces of fruit every day, and that's still a tremendous amount of sugar. So for this phase, we're really trying to reset your hormones, and we're trying to break your addiction to sugar. Berries have a different property than other fruits. They actually have a high nutrient value. So I choose berries when I'm going to eat fruit most of the time, and a half cup of berries in your smoothie in the morning is just fabulous. But don't eat fruit all day long. Think about things like nuts and seeds, flax. You can have some hummus with your vegetables, guacamole. So fat is not the enemy. Bad fat is the enemy. But I want you focusing on healthy fats like that. Your brain is 60% fat. You need to constantly be getting the proper types of fat, not only for you, they're called essential fatty acids for a reason. You need those essential fatty acids. And they really help with brain function a lot. So coconut oil, coconut meat, those types of things are actually really good for you. And I like to put them in my smoothie as well. So think about the perimeter of the grocery store. So when you're looking for proteins, you definitely want some healthy protein in there. Make sure that your meat is grass-fed, hormone-free, antibiotic-free. And focus on things like bison, lamb, cage-free chicken, cage-free eggs that are hormone-free, antibiotic-free, some healthy oils. Make sure you're not cooking with olive oil. You want to be eating olive oil in your salads and things like that. But for cooking, focus on things like either grapeseed oil or coconut oil is excellent. Macadamia nut oil is one of my favorites. It's a little pricey, but it actually tastes really good, and it's much healthier. It has a very high smoke point. So that's a really good oil for cooking with. Herbs and spices, you can just load up on these. So love herbs and spices, garlic, oregano, basil. I mean, as many fresh herbs as you can. But if you don't have a lot of time to cook, go ahead and use some dried herbs and spices. So things like cinnamon and cloves and curry, curcumin, all of those types of things, turmeric. Those things are just wonderful for your health, and they're a great way to boost the antioxidant level in kids' food too, when you can't get them to eat a lot of greens. Things like vanilla, cacao, some of the superfood powders, all of those things are just wonderful and loaded with antioxidants. Okay, and one final thing before we sign off, I want to make sure I give you a list of takeoff tips, things that are going to make it really easy for you to make it through this program. Make sure you eat breakfast in the morning. Some of you will always tell me, I'm not hungry in the morning, I skip breakfast. Well, that's probably part of your problem. People who don't eat breakfast have a very hard time losing weight. So we want you to eat something in the morning. We want you to get your blood sugar stable. Make sure you're eating protein several times a day, small amounts. I want you to think of protein like medicine. Okay, so protein is going to help balance your blood sugar, increase your focus, get you through the day, and balance those hormones of metabolism. So I don't want you eating a big steak. I want you eating small amounts of protein like medicine throughout the day, about every 3 to 4 hours. So make sure you take some healthy snacks with you. And then one thing, if you're not somewhere where you can measure your protein, think of this: shake hands with protein. What does that mean? It means the palm of your hand and the width of your hand. So not just how round your hand is and then, 3 times as thick. I want you about that exact size is how much protein you should be having with each meal. So 2 to 3 grams for women, maybe 4 grams for men, and that's about it. It's all you need with each meal. When you're preparing meals, always plan and make extra. Plan ahead. So if you're making eggs, make a dozen eggs so you have them for the week. If you're making chicken breast, you're already making 1, make 6. So that's what I do. That really helps me. And then when I'm making dinner, I always make enough for leftovers, and that's my lunch the next day. So get in the habit of doing things where you're thinking ahead to help you succeed for the next day and the next week. It's going to really help you. If you travel, have dry travel foods that are approved in your bag, ready to go at all times. And in restaurants, don't let the waiter leave the bread on the table. Make one decision, not 30, because pretty soon you're flirting with it. You're like thinking about it. Next thing you know, you're fantasizing about it. And pretty soon you're in the corner slathered with butter, and it's just a full-blown affair. So get rid of the bread. Don't let him leave it. Move on. Thank you, and I look forward to seeing you next week.